specifically target people who want to do stuff on their own. I do train people. Okay, so depending on where you fall in the scope of things, we have something for you. Come on in.
Thank you.
Why is everybody sitting in the back?
That's why I came to the front.
That's it, man.
We can sneak out.
We're gonna lock you in. All right. Okay. Yeah, I guess because they saw me holding this at the beginning of class, like, not so much. Okay. All right. Let me turn this volume down just a little bit because I think it's just a little too much. Is that better? There we go. All right. So, by the way, the people who sit in the front always get the best stuff.
That's the other reason I'm up there.
That's right. All here for good stuff. Okay, so let me ask you a quick question. How many people here are currently in a relationship? Raise your hands. Okay. Sort of? Okay. How many people here want a relationship? Oh, I better see a whole lot more hands than that or you're leaving. Okay. One of the things that, why am I up here telling you about, if I do all this weird stuff, persuasion, influence, NLP, why am I up here telling you about how to be better, how to be more attractive and all that stuff? The first video course, the first home study course I ever put out was called Secret Orgasm Tips. It was a program specifically designed to teach men how to become the kind of lover every woman fantasizes about. Okay? It was all designed to learn, using NLP and other types of systems, how to find out exactly how a woman wanted to be touched, the order and sequence she wanted to be touched, how she knew she was getting it based on what she considered to be her perfect kiss, her perfect touch, her perfect everything. And to give it back to a woman in such a way that you automatically fit her ideal lover. It wasn't about the guy. It was about learning how to pay attention to what women really want and give it to them in a way that they knew that they were getting it. Now, ladies, let me ask you a question. If you met a guy that touched you in the exact way you've always dreamed of, at the right time, in the right place, look, she's like, whoo, right? And every time I tell this story, or I talk about this, we get that response. Because every one of us, man or woman, is moving through the world with this little internal checklist. And we're projecting it onto everyone around us. And every time we meet a guy, we go, okay, does he match my physical thing? Check. Did he say the right thing at the right time? Check. Oh, he touched, he's standing too close. Right? And to the degree that the person you're interacting with matches your checklist, it's like a video game. They get to go to the next level faster. Now, I hate to use that word game after all those books by Neil Strauss and everything came out, but the bottom line is that you have a checklist. You have a hierarchy of what's important to you, not just in terms of qualities in a guy, but you have a map that you're moving through the world looking for somebody to fit. And to the degree that they fit that map, you fall in love. You become very attracted to that person. You become desiring more intimacy with that person. Because what you see when you look at them, when you interact with them physically, verbally, socially, whatever, is a mirror of who you are inside. Okay? Guys, this is your first tip. It's not about you. All right? Every woman that you meet, and it works the same for guys, by the way. This is the first master key. Everyone you meet is projecting onto you, just like you're a big old marker board, everything they want and need to be absolutely happy. To the degree that you have the ability to pay attention and give it back to them in a way that they know what they're getting, they will fall for you head over heels faster than you can possibly imagine. Some of the protocols that I teach, come on in, don't be shy. It's all right. Some of the protocols I teach can take a person from being a complete stranger to on the verge of falling in love with you in as little as 15 minutes. Now, just because we can do that doesn't mean we should. As any of you have ever been caught in a relationship for 6 months that went absolutely nowhere will attest to, right? How many people here, especially ladies, how many people here would like to find better men? Raise your hands. How many guys here, this is funny, how many guys here would just like to get more women? Raise your hands. Okay, we have one honest guy in the room. All right. You guys gotta relax, man. Seriously. Everybody stand up. Everybody stand up. I want you to look at the person to the right or left of you. Reach out, shake their hand, look them in the eye, smile, and go, boo! Boo! Go ahead, just do it, man. Just cut loose. Boo! How you doing, sweetie? Hi, I'm David. Nice to meet you. Come on in, guys. It's all right. Just let it rip. Just go. You laugh. I put people into trance this way. Have a seat. All right. It's okay if I take this jacket off, because I'm really tired of being formal. The beginning of the product is done. I can get casual now. And they didn't give me a chair, so I can't sit and really just kind of bond with you all. So the first thing I want to talk about is literally this whole concept of, I call it the checklist. Depending on what niche I'm teaching, whether I'm teaching an audience of primarily men, you might hear me call it the orgasm code, right? And I'm dealing with women, I talk about the ideal lover checklist. The bottom line is men and women both do this. Men need the training more than you do. I'm sorry, we're just dumb as rocks, okay? I just finished teaching a 2-day class on what we call self-mastery. It was a class on how to reprogram, how to find and remove all your limiting beliefs, all your baggage, how to recreate your own identity from the ground up. Really powerful stuff on mental training. Highly recommend that course. We have a few graduates of that course, and if they want, I'll point them out and you can talk to them about that. But one of the things that we have to do is we got to clear up our crap. If we want to attract better people, we got to clear our crap up, first and foremost, because they're going to affect what you project onto the world. How many people here, kind of open loop myself, but I'll get back to it eventually, just watch. How many people here, by show of hands, tend to keep attracting the same kind of person into their life? Ooh, how many people don't admit it? Which is usually what it is, right? You see, these templates that we move through the world in, these little checklists, most of them are programmed into us before we even realize that the people around us are, let's put it this way, before age 0 to 5 is when most of this stuff gets programmed in. So the dominant templates by which you sort tend to be your parents or the people in those roles when you were young. After that, it becomes the people who gave you the most pleasurable experiences. Man, it's really loud. Most pleasurable experiences in your early formative years usually have lots of oxytocin involved. Okay? And if frank talk offends you, you should probably run screaming for the exits now. Okay? I do tend to wax politically incorrect. Sometimes it's just necessary. It's fun to scare the straights too. Right? So the checklist. Here's the bottom line on this. Every man or woman that you meet will, in fact, touch you the way they want to be touched, in the place they want to be touched. They will speak to you in the language, unless they're trying to do something weird, that they want to be talked to in. It will literally come out of their mouth exactly what they want to hear. All you have to do is avoid getting creative and give it back to them in the order and sequence that it comes out of their mouth, and they will start to feel dramatically comfortable with you. Okay? How many women here would like to have a guy who just seems to get her? Guess what? I just gave every man in this room the key to getting you. Okay? Because we don't know about this checklist. Now, those of us who have an exposure to NLP or even some forms of conversational hypnosis, we understand this concept of pacing and leading, of matching and mirroring. I'm going to try to minimize the jargon that I'm throwing at you. But basically, anything that somebody does and you do it back, the nervous system treats that as a call to sameness, okay? The problem with sameness is that it's boring, okay? And this is one of the big problems that we have. Again, I'm going to try and lower this volume again because I keep getting feedback on this. Is that better? Okay. All right. I hate that high-pitched whine. It throws off my flow. Anyway, so bottom line is, when you're getting intimate with somebody, they will in fact stand, if they have any kind of social acuity whatsoever, the way they want to relate to you. We're going to talk about 7 stages of body language. So you can literally look at any 2 people interacting or group of people and speed read who's attracted to who. See, this is one of the big problems that guys have. You're going to hear me banging on guys a lot because we're dumb as rocks. We really are. I see I have a few supporters out there, right? In 2005, just to give you an idea, I was voted one of the top 10 attraction and sexuality experts by artofapproaching.com because I had developed a system for becoming any woman's ideal lover, linking those feelings to me in such a way that the more she spent time with me, the happier she got. Okay? Would any woman here like that skill in a man? That the longer you spent time with him, the happier you got? Oh yeah. But some people might not consider it fair. Why? Because a lot of people move through the world thinking that if I have to do something that's not natural, that's something that I have to think about or I wasn't born with, then it's somehow wrong. To those people who might have that feeling, I have this to say: stop washing your hair. Stop going to the hairdresser. Stop getting your nails done. Because it's no different. Maybe the scale, maybe the degree, right? But don't we all want to look our best? Why? We didn't come out of the womb that way. We certainly didn't come out looking our best, did we? We certainly didn't smell all that great. And yet, we do these things because we do care, because we do want people to like us. Here's the thing about the kind of relationship. I'm talking about engineering your ideal relationships. I'm talking about becoming somebody who engenders an intense desire to be and stay with you. And there's a caveat to that. A couple of things. First of all, cell phones off, or I will hunt you down. When you start applying the principles that I'm talking about, you won't have a problem attracting people. You will have a problem getting rid of them. Which means you'd better have a damn good way to sort for the kind of people that you want to spend time with. Right? You see, the people that we attract in our life are more often than not based on templates. People that we identified with as children or in our early years who, in combination of just being present in our world, of having that place of being ultimate authority in our lives, mommy, daddy, okay? We love them and we start to project that onto the world and we look for those people, ironically. Even though they may not physically match how our father looked or our mother looked, there will be characteristics, there will be attitudes and behavioral traits that we are naturally predisposed to gravitate to. Not because we enjoy them. This is a big one. Okay? This is where it starts to get a little heavy. You might want to eat a lot of chocolate now. You might have heard some famous attraction gurus and teachers say this phrase. Attraction is not a choice. We don't wake up one morning, walk down the street, see some random stranger, go, I'm going to be attracted to him. And if we do, they usually run, screaming the other way, right? We do not sort as children, and we're going to go back to the womb so we can understand where this stuff starts, so we can begin to change it, so we can begin to create and become the kind of person that can get the kind of guy or gal that we really want, not the one that was programmed into us randomly. Okay? So, how does this start? Well, let me write this out. This is your brain on David. Okay? Now, we like to think we're really smart people. This has nothing to do with intelligence and everything to do with storage and what got there first. Your brain is hardwired not to sort for good or bad. At least not in the sense that we as adults understand it. There's either comfortable or uncomfortable. But it gets even more primal. It's either familiar or it's unfamiliar. To use a therapeutic model, but for anybody who's been in or has known other people in abusive relationships, you might find similar patterns here. Clinically, one of the things that I deal with a lot is repressed emotion. Almost every case I deal with when it comes to helping women, especially with pain, I don't get like regular weight loss. I get traumatic stuff. Almost always has some kind of sexual abuse or molestation issue that comes up. Okay? I deal a lot with those issues. I help people get through them. I help people put them behind them, stuff like that. When you come into this world, you are one big blank hard drive. You barely have an operating system, to use a computer metaphor. To your brain, whatever comes first becomes the standard by which everything else is measured by. It becomes what's familiar. If you're brought into an environment where you're held, you're taught, you're comforted, those things are comfortable, right? They're good. And there may be eventually a word associated with that we come to know as love. Trust me, I have a 10-month-old. She does not know what love means. But she knows when she feels it. Okay? She does not understand love yet. At least not how we understand it. That's a very evolved perspective. But at her most basic fundamental level, I also have a 22-year-old, so I run the gamut. God's getting back at me. She does understand what's familiar, and she understands what's comfortable. If she has a choice, if she has to choose, more often than not, she'll sort for what's familiar. You will too. What's familiar is usually what's there first. Okay? This is why if you have somebody, like when you're dealing with an alcoholic or somebody who chronically gets in abusive relationships, that person may be brought into a relationship that there's a lot of yelling going on, there's a lot of arguing. You might get things like, I'm a drunk, my father's a drunk, she'll be a drunk too. Right? And even though it's not directed at the kid, it's in the kid's presence. We did a whole segment during our last 2 trainings on internal dialogue. And you'll notice when we start to play with dialogue and these little voices in your head, you'll notice they're at different places. They usually correspond to where the dominant authority figures in your life were standing at the time. Because most of us, the voices are here and here and here. Very seldom are they down here. That's because we're down here. This is usually where we are when those voices are speaking. We identify with the voices and the dominant authority figures in our life. They become the template by which we start to create our own checklists. Does it match or doesn't it? Is it familiar or unfamiliar? And that's what you will unconsciously sort for. Okay? It gets deeper, but I don't want to get too crap. Now, most normally organized people, Love means feeling good, feeling happy. But for some people, love has a couple other elements in it that we don't normally consider, like stress, anxiety. Why? Because those were the emotions that were going on when the word love was being thrown around. They got hardwired in too. Okay? Every now and then when I teach this part of the segment, I see some guy go, because now they're starting to think, oh my God, I'm going to marry my mother, right? Or something weird. There are things you can do, right? But understand that this becomes the skeleton by which everything else is influenced. Okay? It's also why a lot of times our parents tend to hate the people we pick. Because there's something about them that mirrors back to those people, something they don't like about themselves. Which brings us to our next lesson on how you actually work. Now, the cool thing is using the technologies of NLP, hypnosis, energy work, we can fix it. You're not broken. None of you are broken. Trust me on this. None of you are broken. You just, as Richard Bandler likes to say, you're doing stupid shit. What does that really mean? It just means that you're thinking about things in a certain way that's not getting you what you want. And until you understand how to run your brain, you will continue to have thoughts and memories and ideas that were put in there without your consent, most of the time without your realization, and they will continue to run your life. In my persuasion and influence courses, I teach people anything outside of your awareness is outside of your control. When I teach guys how to become the kind of lover every woman dreams about, the first rule is pay attention. Pay attention, because she will give you all the information that you need to make her ridiculously happy. Okay? She will do it. And she will love you for it. See, they agree. All right, so questions on this part. I don't want to get too deep into it because this isn't a therapy class. This is about understanding why you might keep attracting the same kind of people into your life. It's not about good or bad. It's about what was there first and what you're sorting for. This is also why you can meet a great guy or a great girl who's everything you ever wanted or dreamed, and the relationship short circuits in half the time. Because it doesn't match your template. It doesn't match. This goes to self-esteem and self-image. A lot of what goes into our self-image and our self-esteem are based on the templates we had when we were babies. From 0 to 5, we have no conscious mind. And as our self-image changes, the things we accept, the things we refuse to accept change. This is why we have a thing called the First Wives Club. You guys know what this is? These guys are too young to remember the movie. This is why, many times, and ladies, you've heard it 1,000 times, you've probably read the book and seen the movie. Two people meet in an undergraduate education or maybe in high school sweethearts. He has this aspiration to be a world-famous heart surgeon or plastic surgeon or some kind of high-level mucky-muck, and she works her butt off to help him get through medical school, help him become, climb that corporate ladder. He gets to that Fortune 500 CEO position and dumps her for a model. Why? His self-image changed. What he thought he deserved changed. Had nothing to do with whether he loved her or not, actually. It's how he sees himself. You see, we have this thing called resistance in our life. And resistance crops up in one of 4 basic ways. We resist anything that challenges or calls into question how we see ourselves. We resist or move away from anything that jeopardizes how we think other people will see us. And we inherently resist anything that contradicts what we know to be true. Now, there's one other kind of resistance that rears its ugly head. I lovingly call it the fuck you factor. This is called reactance. Okay? You will most likely experience this anytime your parents don't want you to date the person you're currently dating. Okay? They come home, you bring the guy home or the girl home, and the first words out of her mouth, you know it's oil and water right there, right? But you keep seeing him, or you keep seeing her, in spite of what your parents say. And even though you might not have been that attracted to him right away, the longer they talk, the better he looks. Okay? That's called reactance. It's a natural, hardwired reaction to any kind of persuasion that we're getting that we didn't ask for. You know when mom gives you her opinion, whether you ask for it or not? That little... That's reactance. Okay? Yes?
Can you get that with your kids?
Yes.
My kids do that too.
Yeah. It's hardwired into every human being on the planet. So the secret becomes, how do we make people want to do the things we want them to do? Ah. I'm glad you asked. All right. We needed to cover these foundations because some of the things I will say to you will give you that visceral emotional response. Pay attention to that. Because every time something comes out of my mouth that gives you a less than positive emotional response, it's something you need to explore. Okay? Part of my job is to make you painfully aware of some of the things you are running away from. Because it's the things you're running away from that keep pulling those other people into your life. Okay? All right. So, most guys, when it comes to meeting the ideal woman, they have a problem. The problem is A, they're scared to death. And the things that are supposed to work in a chronological, linear progression, because that's how guys think, A causes B causes C. That's how we think. But that's not how women think, as a rule. Not that they're dumb or irrational or anything like that. But, as a rule, and rules mean that they're true 51% of the time. Makes it useful. Where's my eraser? Is there an eraser floating around?
Right here.
Thank you.
No problem.
Is this useful information, by the way? Because if I'm running west looking for a sunrise, I need to know. Okay. What was the last thing I said before I said, "Where's my eraser"? Anybody remember? Huh?
You're talking about how guys think and how women
Okay. In neuro-linguistic speak, we have these things called language patterns. They're ways of speaking. Now, certain language patterns give you these, can create certain effects in the brain. And then they cause you to change your perceptions of the world because they change how your brain processes information. Guys, as a rule, tend to think in what is commonly referred to as cause and effect language. The structure literally means X causes Y. I was late today because traffic on Mira Mesa sucked. It was bumper to bumper. I couldn't get there. Right? Men tend to think that way. But there's an evil cousin. I shouldn't say evil. It's actually pretty cool once you understand it. I'm going to give you a secret today, a secret recipe today for making any relationship work. Would that be cool? Would that be useful? Even if you're on the verge of divorce. Ooh, tall order, huh? I'm going to give it to you. But if you don't understand cause and effect and complex equivalence, you won't be able to make it happen. In a cause and effect relationship, there is a sequential ordinal X causes Y causes Z. In a complex equivalence relationship, X equals Y. They are the same. So the joke that my wife and I kind of banter about whenever we use this example, I invited her tonight because this time of year is a very special time for us, even though we met long before that. But so I want to honor her a little bit if she shows up. If not, then I'll just talk about her. But traffic on Mira Mesa was bumper to bumper, and that's why I'm late. Somebody who's doing a complex equivalence relationship, if you were a better planner, you wouldn't have been late. Does this sound familiar? The The story we used to say is, I'm sorry, honey, I was late. I got held up at the office. Traffic was a bear. I'm sorry, I'm late because of all these things. That's why I didn't pick Jack up at daycare. If you'd have loved Jack, you'd have picked him up. Does these sound familiar? Not necessarily the content, but the structure. If you to X, you to Y. Right? This is one of the reasons in relationships we have trouble. Because a man's going to give you all the reasons why something is the way it is. A woman's going to tell you what it means. And that's why you don't get each other a lot of the times. Because everything you do, gentlemen, means something to her. To us, it's inconsequential. These were just elements that happened that led to the result. Not to her. Everything, ladies, true or not true? Everything we do in your world has a meaning. It's not just a random event. Welcome to the cause of most trouble in a relationship. But wait, there's more. Here's the worst part. Well, I'm going to give you, since we're on relationships, I'll just come a little bit this, then we'll talk about meeting and approaching. Would that be okay? Because someday, if you guys actually use this stuff, you might actually get in a relationship, and you might want to hold on to it, right? Women, ladies, no disparagement. There's a book called Brain Rules by a guy named John Medina. How many people have that book? If you don't, get it. In that book, I think he talks about this, but if not, there's a video floating around on YouTube where he's lecturing at Google, and he talks about this. When women get stressed out, they get tense, they get anxious, they get progressively more picky and detail-oriented. In NLP terminology, we call them down-chunkers. They get more, if they're having a bad day and you leave the toilet lid seat up, okay, it's not going to stop at the toilet lid seat. Okay? It's going to be the toilet seat was up, she nearly fell in, it was the middle of the night, you also left the cap off the toothpaste. When will you grow up? Sound familiar? First wife was practice. Anyway. If I'd known then what I know now. But here's my point. When guys get that, we start to defend ourselves, which only makes it worse. Okay, I'll tell you all about the dynamics of this later. From the male perspective, guys, it's not rational. It's not logical. All right? I left the toilet seat up. It was the middle of the night. I was tired. I'm sorry. Let it go. No. Because she needs to tell you how she feels. Because if she doesn't, she can't let it go. Your job is to let her vent. The magic mantra, honey, I'm sorry I was wrong, will get you out of everything. Regardless of how egregious, as long as you're sincere with it, sincerity is important, right? Because they got bullshit detectors bigger than you. This is one of the reasons why a lot of the times when we're out in the dating environment, we get complete cold shoulder from women and don't know why. Guys, you got to understand something. Your woman is brilliant. Any woman you approach, really, is brilliant. What do I mean by that? What I mean is her emotional intelligence, her ability to analyze and codify tiny body language cues, little voice inflections, is off the charts for the average woman compared to guys. Most guys, we're dumb as bricks. Okay? I make a joke, but it's literally sometimes this bad. For a guy to figure out if a woman's attracted to him, she would almost literally have to go, and then he'd still wonder. Okay? But why am I even bringing this up? Because how many guys in the field have noticed that sometimes when they approach a woman in a club or a high populated social interaction, there's this little bitch scream that comes up, this little cold shoulder that just kind of radiates off her. It's like you get within 10 feet of her and the temperature starts to decrease and frost comes out, right? A little light goes on inside when she talks. You ever wonder why? It's not about you. Everybody, what? You see, the socialization that women receive and men receive are dramatically different. The average woman is brilliant. She is trained to hone in on subtle body language cues, voice shifts that let her know when the conversation is over. Because she's moving through the world, assuming everybody around is doing it the way she does, when she gives you these subtle cues that the conversation isn't going anywhere, it's over, you don't get it. And when you don't get it, she has to keep escalating because you still aren't getting it. Until finally, she literally has to blow smoke in your face and turn her back to you before you'll get the hint. Now, women don't want to have to do that. But their socialization is such that they didn't... See, women want you to approach. Here's the thing I want you to get. They don't want to be mean. They're not doing it out of meanness. They're doing it out of fear. What? She looked at me and made my nard shrivel. What do you mean fear? You see, women have different anxieties about interacting with men than men do about women. See, guys, you're afraid when you walk up to her, after you've mustered up your courage, sent all your mantras, pumped yourself up, got your best duds on, you're afraid she's going to reject you. Right? We'll get into that. But women, it's a little bit different. You see, women, as a rule, are taught to be nice. They're taught to be considerate. They're taught to go the extra mile. They're also taught when to figure things out, but they're not taught how to get themselves out of situations that aren't going well. Their problem isn't that they don't want you to approach. Their problem is they don't know how to extricate themselves from it if it goes wrong. You understand? They're afraid of getting into an interaction that they can't get out of. Ladies, true, not true? Okay? Yes.
That's why we use time constraints.
You use time constraints. I don't engage in those kind of things. All right? That would be manipulative and... You guys know what he's saying? You know what he's talking about when he says time constraints? What's your name again? Cynthia? Cynthia, I don't have a lot of time right now, but I just wanted to talk and meet you because you look really interesting. I have to go soon. Right? How many people have been the victim of one of those those lines out there, right? It's a very good tactic. It takes the stress off because it gives the person the impression that you'll be leaving soon. So they relax, right? And it works, okay? It's been around for about 30 years, though, in spite of what the pickup community wants you to believe. Right? This is not about tricks, by the way. Everything I'm going to be teaching you and sharing with you is about ethics and honesty and openness. But they are strategically valid. They work. I don't invest my time and energy in low percentage techniques. Okay? Everything is about being authentic. But we need to understand the dynamics of what's going on with the other side. See, because until you understand how they see the world, how they move through the world, you won't be able to change what you're doing. You won't be able to understand it, and you won't be able to adapt. And if you can't adapt, you die. It's just survival 101, right? So, understand this. Women have that bitch shield, not because they want to be mean, not because they get off on making you feel this big, but because they're afraid. Their defense mechanisms are such that they need to protect themselves from getting into a deep interaction that they can't remove themselves from. Once that's taken care of, they're much more open to becoming approachable. See, ladies, your job, if you want better men, the men you want in your life are the ones you're scaring away. The men you want in your life, the ones who would respect your boundaries, who would bend over backwards to give you every romantic adventure, every moment of being swept off your feet, of surrendering to that passion and that intimacy you've always dreamed of, will never approach you. You know why? Because most women are socialized into giving off body language signals that only attract people who are extraordinarily arrogant and self-confident, who are not put off by boundaries. These are people who have no regard for boundaries as a rule. This is why the average nice guy has to psych themselves up to approach you. Because it's not natural. Whereas, if you were willing to be more approachable, to signal that you wanted to be approached, you would get approached by more of the kind of guys you want. See how the system's rigged? Everything you're not broken. Everything you're doing has a positive intention behind it. But the other results, the way it's being interpreted by the other side, who have their own socialization, their own checklist, are causing this disconnect. So ladies, your job is to learn to become more approachable. How do you learn to become more approachable? Understanding body language, but the most important one is to develop very socially acceptable and progressive ways to systematically remove yourself from any interaction that's not going in the direction you want it to go. Right? And there's some good books I'll recommend later that are good ways to start referencing that. Okay? Guys, you want to understand that when she approaches you, if you learn what to look for, and you learn how to talk to her in a way that when she talks to you, she sees the best parts of her reflected in you, she will become dramatically attracted to you. Right? I'm not talking about being inauthentic. I'm about showing the woman the parts of you that are most like her. Because, remember, too much sameness, boring. Too much difference, dangerous. But that right mix of excitement and safety, now we're cooking. Now we have the stuff of every romantic adventure and every romance novel ever created. Right? I spend a lot of time studying romance novels. Okay? There's a lot you can learn, gentlemen. Okay? So, questions on this? This means yes, this means no, there will be a test later. All right. Tell you what, yes, sir.
One quick question.
Mm-hmm.
When you said to see the best, that part of her that's reflected in you, isn't that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, how would that relate to sort of like the dance of the polarities of the male and the female? Because, you know, the woman is bringing a certain kind of energy to the table and the man as well. So if you're reflecting back that something that's in her already, it seems to me that, you know, there's something maybe you want to strive also for something
Well, remember
complementary.
what I just said was you need to have enough similarities that you're safe, but enough differences that you're exciting.
Right.
And that's that dance of polarities that you're talking about. When it's all one polarity, it's just blah.
Right.
You know, and that's where the intimacy and the passion comes from. The intimacy comes from the sameness, from the openness, the sharing. The excitement comes from the differences. Yes.
I know a female that always has a smug look on her face,
Mm-hmm.
and all the men approach her.
Yep. Would you like to know why?
And she's never satisfied with anyone.
Why do you think that is?
My friend and I, we're not like that. We're fun and gay, and they don't talk to us.
So, do you want to know how to excite those guys? Is that what you want to do?
Not really, but
So she's attracting guys you don't want, but you want more attention anyway.
just any random guy.
Any random guy, well. So we're not going to say she's easy, just often, right? But she just gets a lot of male attention.
Yes.
Okay. Nothing wrong with that, as long as you know how to handle it, right? There's a lot of people, and there's a lot, and again, we can go way off into that, you know, learning to understand the different types of women. It's a whole different kettle of fish. But we're going to stop this. Yes?
So you said that, you know, why?
It's interesting that you bring this up. Another segue, right? I was about to give you a break so you could eat chocolate, drink coffee, and go potty. But now I have to go into get more neuroscience. Jeez. Is this good stuff, though? Are you guys? Okay. The neuroscience and the explanations make it sound very, very complicated. It's actually very simple. Once we know what we're dealing with. Okay. All right, this is going to get a little convoluted. Actually, no. It won't get convoluted. We're going to have some fun. Everybody stand up. Hi, Sheila.
Shayla.
Shayla? See, I got it wrong on the first try. How about that? All right, here's what I want you to do. I want everybody to just get your space. And what I want you to do is I want you to remember a time in your life when you knew, when you realized and felt absolutely attractive. And you knew it because, A, the way people around you were responding to you. And you knew it. And then what I want you to do is, as soon as you have that feeling, what I want you to do is backtrack to a couple of minutes before you realized it, when you were still in that feeling, but the realization hadn't hit you yet. Close your eyes. Now, notice where in your body that feeling lives. As you notice where it lives, just point to it. Look at it with your inner eyes. Notice there's a color associated with that feeling. And now let's just pretend for a moment that we could reach into that spot, grab all that energy, take it out and hold it in our hands in front of us. Just reach in, grab it, take it out. You don't have to believe it, you just do it. Grab it with both your hands. Notice it's moving in a certain direction. Pay attention to the direction it's moving, first impression. Now double the spin, double the speed at which it's moving, double the amplitude, and just keep physically doubling that energy until it takes on a life of its own, until it becomes impossible to stop. When you know you've got it, I can tell who's going to get it and who's not. Slam it back in. Whoosh. Notice the change. Notice how wonderful that feels. Now open your eyes and look around the room. This is a hell of a good looking room. Right? Now, what did we just do there? Go back to that feeling of being totally attractive. Not attracted, attractive. When you knew it, you felt it, it was undisputable. I want you to stand the way you were standing. I want you to breathe the way you were breathing. Okay? And lock it in. Notice what starts to happen to your feelings, how you physically feel as you assume that posture of being absolutely attractive. Now, while holding that same breathing rate, that same posture, that same everything, without changing anything, try to feel ugly. Notice you can't really do it without changing how you're standing. Now go back to feeling attractive. Stand even bigger. That's how she does it. When you move through the world holding a certain physiology, having your nervous system in a certain configuration, the emotional states that you live in radiate out to everyone around you, and they perceive you exactly the same way. The problem is that most of us are practicing shitty physiology, which leads to shitty emotional states, which leads to us being less than attractive most of the time. It's really that simple. It's not about what you believe. It's about what you're doing with your body. Prove me wrong. Everybody, close your eyes, because I want you looking at me when you do this. I want you to remember a time when you felt less than attractive. Okay? As George Carlin would say, those days where we suffer from severe appearance deficit. Right? Remember that time. And you knew it. You could tell by the way people were responding to you. You weren't being seen in the best possible light. And now what I want you to do, while holding that physiology, I can see who's doing it and who's not. That's called the fuck you factor, by the way. Those of you who I tell you to do something and you just refuse to do it. Try to feel attractive without changing anything. Use all the willpower you have, but keep that crappy physiology. Notice what happens. Now, while holding on to the crappy I'm unattractive state mentally, shift your body back to the oh my God I'm so hot stage and notice what happens. Oh, guys just went from a 5 to a 10 really fucking quick. Is it really that easy? Mm-hmm. Sit down. All you hot people. Simple, right? The only thing you have to remember, guys and gals, is that every feeling that we have in the body, emotionally, cognitively, has a corresponding physiology, a corresponding posture, rate of breathing, everything. Every feeling, or every state has a feeling and a body posture. Every body posture has a feeling. In our advanced classes, we teach persuasion and influence, things like that. We spend a lot of time understanding this connection. There's a technique we call the rock star technique. And a lot of what I teach was actually designed for women to attract guys. I had to tweak a lot of it so that the guys could actually have a chance with the ladies. So when I tell you things, a lot of it has been field tested by women to get the kind of guys they want. There's a technique called the rock star technique, where the equivalent of it in our conversational persuasion and influence course is the master and commander technique. The story goes like this. There was a woman who on an attractiveness scale was probably around a 6 or 7, not super hot, right? And yet, whenever she went out, whenever she went to a club, she owned the room. Every guy in the place wanted to be with her. And the girls were like, all the 9s and 10s were beside themselves. How is this happening? Is she like putting out on the side? What's going on? No. She rarely left with the guys who were hanging out. And then one day, a smart guy pulled her aside and said, hey, let me ask you a question. What's your secret? How do you have all these guys hanging out and wanting to, be in your entourage, so to speak? She said, well, it's real simple. Before I go out every night, I imagine I'm a rock star, and I stand like I'm a rock star. I imagine myself as a rock star, and I am. And when I walk in the room, I move like I'm a rock star, and everybody's there to see me. And guess what? Pretty soon, everybody there is there to see her. Really? No. Yeah. Now the neuroscience comes out. Everybody here ever hear of something called mirror neurons? Okay. If you haven't, you should study them, because it is one of the most important medical discoveries of our age. Okay. Mirror neurons. They are in fact the physiological basis for empathic communication. Okay. On the most basic level, the way they discovered this was there was some researchers in Italy, and they were doing some studies on movement and how the brain interprets information. And one of the lab assistants was peeling a banana. And then they had these rhesus monkeys, I think they were, hooked up to these EEGs, EKGs? EEGs. Weird brain instruments, technical term. And the monkey was all hooked up, and he's just kind of hanging out. And he's watching the lab assistant peel a banana. And the other lab techs happened to be looking at the instruments, and he noticed something about the readings. The areas of the brain in the monkey that were firing were the same areas that would be active if he were actually peeling the banana. So literally what happens is when you observe somebody doing something, your nervous system fires off all of the same neurological connections as if you were actually doing it. Okay? That's one side of a many-faceted equation. I'm going to give you another one really, really quick. I will do my best to keep it simple, but if you understand empathy, then we understand how we can begin to create states in other people by having them ourselves. By holding certain physiologies, we empathically communicate information outside of conscious awareness. Okay? Scientists, again, overfunded and really bored, set up an experiment. This was, once again, a male to female dynamic. We'll put the male over here, we'll put the female over here. And they took, for this example, I don't know the actual number they used, but to keep it simple, we'll say they had 5 random photographs of people in various ranges of attraction, from, really low, severe appearance deficit, the Phyllis Dillers of the world, and very, very attractive. They had 5 random resumes, dossier, curriculum vitae, whatever word you want to apply to it. They paired these up randomly and gave it to this gentleman, who was then told to engage in a phone conversation with who he thought was this person. Wasn't. Was completely blind. These two engaged in a conversation. At the end of the conversation, our Manny Man was asked to evaluate the female based on the interaction. Consistently, whenever the man thought he was talking to an attractive, well-accomplished woman, by the way, the primary variable in this was the picture. He consistently rated her as being more talented, more socially adept, more competent, more everything. Okay? When the woman asked how she felt the interaction went, she reported that she felt like the guy on the other phone really got her. Like he was present, he understood her, like the conversation went very, very well. When the lady was one of severe appearance deficit, paired with the same resume, our Manny Man here consistently rated her lower in social adeptness, intelligence, talent, everything. Now, by the way, this worked the other way too, I believe. So I'm being unilateral here. But that's not the really cool part. You might think it would be. They then took the audios of these interactions and they ferociously edited them to the only thing left were the audio snippets of her responses to him. Nothing of the male remained. They then played those audios to an independent panel of analysts and judges who were then asked to rate the female on the same criteria as this gentleman, based solely on the quality of her verbal behavior. "100% match." Something in the way the gentleman on the other end of the phone saw this woman was transmitted verbally and non-verbally to this woman's nervous system in such a way that she literally took on the behaviors that projected that result to everyone around her. This is happening to you all the time, outside of your conscious awareness, and you are doing it to other people. Okay? Now, the question is, what the hell do you do with that? Well, in the world according to David, we have this thing called the acceptance, rejection, projection, connection, which is a real long, drawn-out way of saying your checklist. You see, human beings, unlike most of God's creatures, have the capacity for reflective thought. We have the ability to have thoughts about our thoughts, to have feelings about our feelings, and to assign an arbitrary value to those feelings and those identities that we see. Man, just not my day for good sound, huh? Let's try this. That might work. So many times, the way people see us is a reflection of how we see ourselves. Because that's what we do when we approach, especially guys. Okay? Ladies might not realize this, but whenever a guy is getting ready to approach a woman, he's going to do basically one of two things. Unless he's trained, but this is usually what he defaults to. A, he sees a woman he wants to talk to. The first thing goes, oh, she's nice, I'd like to meet her. She's going to reject me. And he never approaches. Right? Or, this is the fun one. He sees her, he's like, she's amazing, I have to meet her. And he imagines himself walking up. They lock eyes. The chemistry's there, everything clicks. And they're together, and it's passionate, and it's wonderful for 3 or 4 months, and then suddenly the relationship ends tragically. She leaves him heartbroken, bereft, and he never approaches. You laugh. We do this shit to ourselves. But if we're running those highly charged emotional movies in our head, what do you think we're projecting? What do you think we're training the people we're going to interact with to do? This is why your lady's always being approached, because she's carrying herself in a way that radiates an identity.
Then what happens afterwards?
Ah, that's the rub.
100 dates? First date?
Well, we got to learn to sort, don't we? See, part of the problem is, A, knowing this shit's going on, and then what do we do about it, right? See, most of the ladies in here have no problem attracting guys. They don't. All right? I don't care if you're a supermodel or Phyllis Diller. You probably don't have any trouble attracting people. They're just not the ones you want. True or not true? Okay? Why? Because the signals we're sending out, we're not aware of. We know what we want to send out, but there's another layer. The layer we didn't know was there first. Right? Based on our history, the dominant authority figures in our life, all this stuff. But we're moving through the world, male or female makes no difference, projecting onto everyone around us exactly what's right and appropriate for us, based on our map of the world, our experience. And when we meet someone who even partially matches that map, we hold on. We hold on tight. Why? Because we're afraid there won't be something better. So the next thing that comes along might be worse. Right? How many of you ladies, how many of you have dated a guy who's got potential? I can't tell you how, guys, is this news to you? It's like, holy shit. Because women don't see you as you see yourself, they see you how you could be based on their map of your world. Guys tend to do the same thing. See, most guys want to give women the sexual fantasies they want them to have instead of the ones they really want. Right? It's all about understanding the other person's way of seeing the world and being willing to do one of two things. Only accept people who match, or be willing to change your map to accommodate theirs. Now, as a rule, women are far more hardwired to doing this than men. Okay? Because their socialization teaches them to do it. They don't realize that that's what they're doing. They just know that they're putting the other guy's needs ahead of their own. And then, of course, that they get married and they have kids and she has a career. Now she's soccer mom, now she's career woman, now she's dutiful wife and homemaker. 20 years later, at the end of the day, she's exhausted and there's nothing left for her. Because she married a good guy, arguably, good provider, stable, exciting as toast, who might have been a very exciting guy when they first met. Only, as soon as she said I do, he stopped doing it. Why? Because socially programmed roles take over. You become different people because the identity roles you've taken on change. So how do you fix it? It's real simple. If you're married, date your wife. Be the guy she fell in love with, not the guy she's married to. Do all the things that you did to get her to fall in love with you in the first place, and you know what? The girl will come out. Because she never left. She just put everybody else first. For those of you who eventually wind up in a relationship, that's the beginning. Never stop seducing your wife. Never stop dating her. Never be that guy. Okay? Just an idea. So, we've gone deep into the science. We've given you some heavy shit, right? You guys having fun with this?
Yes.
All right. Let's take a 10-minute break. You guys go potty, have lots of chocolate, drink lots of caffeine. We'll come back. We'll get into some actual techniques. Okay?